The afternoon sun sagged low over Ridgewood Heights, casting long orange streaks across the tired sidewalks and the rusting bus stop where Emily and her mother Sarah quietly waited. Sarah, a widow for almost 3 years, was a woman who carried strength the way others carried scars, deep, silent, unspoken. Her daughter Emily, barely 12, clung to her worn backpack as if it were a shield against the world. Life had not been gentle to them, but they had learned to survive its storms together. As the wind brushed fallen leaves across their feet, Sarah felt a strange heaviness in the air, a feeling she'd learned to trust. A sense that something was coming. Something she wasn't ready for. But life rarely asked permission. From behind the empty grocery store across the street, 3 figures emerged, teenagers old enough to know better, cruel enough not to care. Tyler and his 2 friends, Jason and Mike, were known throughout the neighborhood for their brutality, their boredom, and their desperate need to dominate whatever crossed their path. They walked like they owned the world, shoving aside anything that didn't praise them. And today, their eyes locked on Sarah, the widow who often refused to bow her head, even when people whispered about her struggles. Weakness, they believed, had a scent. And they prided themselves on smelling it. Emily tugged on her mother's sleeve as the boys approached, their footsteps heavy, their laughter cold. Sarah's heart clenched. She'd dealt with rude kids before, but the looks in their eyes today were different. "What do you want?" she asked firmly, placing Emily slightly behind her. Tyler grinned, stepping forward with the confidence of someone who had never been stopped, never been held accountable. "Heard your husband kicked it," he sneered. "Guess you're alone now. Must be tough, huh?" His friends snickered like hyenas. Emily's breath caught in her throat. Sarah tried to step away, but Tyler blocked her path. Then it began. A shove, a slap, a cruel taunt about her husband, then a punch that knocked Sarah to the ground. Emily screamed as her mother hit the pavement. The world blurred into fear and tears as the boys circled Sarah, kicking, laughing, enjoying the cruelty the way predators enjoy a cornered prey. Sarah tried to shield herself, tried to stand, but another kick drove her down. Emily grabbed Tyler's arm, crying, begging, but he shoved her so hard she fell beside her mother, and oh! Emily shrieked, covering Sarah with her small body. "Stop!" But they didn't. The sound of fists, the sound of shoes hitting ribs, the sound of a mother crying not for her pain, but for her child's terror, and then a sound cut through the chaos. A deep, heavy bark, then another. The boys froze as a massive shadow moved from behind the building on the corner, a Belgian Malinois, muscles coiled, teeth bared, eyes locked with a predator's precision. At his side walked a man whose very presence seemed to command the air around him, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a faded navy hoodie and boots that had seen more dust and mud than any of these boys had ever imagined. A scar cut across his eyebrow, the kind earned in battle, not mischief. His expression was calm, too calm. "Atlas," he said softly to the dog. "Stand by." The Malinois growled but obeyed instantly. The boy's smirks melted into fear. The man stepped closer, his voice low, controlled, lethal without raising a volume. "You got about 3 seconds to explain," he said. "Why, I just watched 3 cowards jump a widow and her little girl." Tyler tried to speak, but fear strangled his words. The man didn't blink. "Thought so." He walked past the boys, kneeling beside Sarah and Emily. His voice softened instantly. "You two all right?" Emily nodded shakily, still crying. Sarah, bruised and trembling, tried to sit up. Who are you?" she whispered. He gave a small, reassuring smile. "Name's Daniel. Daniel Hayes." He nodded toward the Malinois. "And that's Atlas. We served together overseas." When he turned back to the boys, the softness vanished. "You 3 think hitting a woman makes you strong?" His voice carried the weight of someone who had seen real violence with consequences. "Try hitting someone who can hit back." Tyler swallowed hard. "We didn't mean." "Shut up." Daniel stepped closer. They stumbled backward. "You targeted a widow. You attacked a kid. You're lucky I didn't let Atlas handle this." At the word handle, the Malinois took 1 step forward, a low rumble rising from deep in his chest. The boys nearly tripped over each other, retreating. Daniel leaned in. "You're going to turn yourselves in. Tonight. And you're going to apologize. If you don't, I will personally make sure every parent, teacher, and officer in this town knows what you did." His eyes narrowed. "Am I clear?" The boys nodded violently before sprinting away. Emily sobbed as the danger faded. Sarah, shaking, tried to stand. Daniel caught her gently. "Easy. Don't push yourself." For the first time, Sarah saw his eyes, steady, warm, protective. The eyes of someone who had carried both darkness and duty. "Thank you," she whispered. Daniel shrugged lightly. "People like them prey on those they think are alone." He glanced at Emily. "But you're not alone anymore." As the ambulance sirens approached from a distance, likely called by a witness, Atlas lay beside Emily, pressing his head under her trembling hand, letting her feel safety again. Daniel stood upright, scanning the street like a guardian who didn't just witness danger, but eliminated it, and in that moment, neither Sarah nor Emily knew just how deeply this stranger would soon become part of their lives, part protector, part mentor, part family. They had survived the storm, but the real change, the true transformation, was only beginning. The hospital room smelled faintly of antiseptic and the soft cotton scent of freshly washed sheets. Sarah lay on the bed, bruises darkening across her ribs and cheek, while Emily sat curled up beside her, refusing to leave her mother's side for even a second. Daniel stood near the door, arms crossed, presence silent but powerful. Nurses drifted in and out, but Emily kept glancing at Daniel as though needing constant reassurance that the world outside the hospital walls could not reach them, not while he was there. When the doctor left, Daniel stepped forward. "You'll be all right," he said gently. "Just bruising. Nothing broken. You're tougher than you think." Sarah forced a tired smile. "Life made me that way." Daniel nodded knowingly. "Yeah, it tends to." Over the next few days, Daniel visited often, bringing food, checking on Emily, taking Atlas for walks around the hospital so the dog wouldn't get restless. Each time he came back, Emily's entire face lit up, and Atlas would nuzzle her as if she were part of his pack. Nurses whispered that they hadn't seen a man more protective and calm in years, but the story didn't end in the emergency room. Tyler and his friends hadn't turned themselves in. Daniel found out the next morning when he received a message from a local officer he used to serve with. He stood at the hospital window, jaw tightening. He didn't like broken promises. That night, Daniel returned to Ridgewood Heights and found the boys swaggering near the basketball court, laughing, boasting, pretending nothing had happened. He didn't say a word. He simply walked into the center of their circle. Atlas sat beside him, still, silent, deadly. Tyler rolled his eyes. "Oh great, Captain America again." Daniel stared at him. "You lied." Jason laughed nervously. "We just forgot?" Daniel stepped even closer. "You made a choice. Now I'm making mine." What followed wasn't violence. No fists. No threats. To IT was worse. Daniel called every parent, every principal, every officer he knew. Within 24 hours, the boys were suspended, enrolled in mandatory counseling, and assigned community service hours for the next 6 months, half of which they were required to complete at the very hospital Sarah had been treated in. Real consequences, real accountability. When the boys realized how deeply Daniel's connections ran, how respected he was, how many people listened to him, they understood. They had picked the wrong family to hurt, but as the boys learned accountability, Sarah learned something too, kindness from a man who owed her nothing yet chose to show up every single day. During her healing, Daniel brought groceries. He fixed her broken porch railing. He taught Emily how to stand up to bullies, not with fists, but with posture, confidence, and awareness. Atlas stayed by Emily's side like a guardian angel with fur. The bond grew quickly, naturally. One evening, as the sun melted into pink across the hills, Sarah stood on her small porch watching Daniel pack up his tools. "Why are you helping us?" she asked softly. Daniel paused, wiping sweat from his brow. "Because someone helped me once," he said. "When I came home from deployment. I wasn't in a good place. A family I barely knew took me in. Fed me. Gave me purpose. I promised myself that if I ever saw someone being crushed by life, I'd step in." Sarah's eyes softened. "You saved us." Daniel shook his head. "You saved yourselves. I just showed up." But the truth was deeper, quieter. He didn't just show up. He cared, and caring, real, genuine, protective caring, was something Sarah hadn't felt since her husband passed. Something Emily had desperately needed. Weeks later, when Sarah was healed enough to return to normal life, the three of them, Sarah, Emily, and Daniel, sat at a small cafe, sharing warm pastries while Atlas rested at Emily's feet. The girl laughed more now. The shadows in Sarah's eyes had begun to lift. Daniel felt something warm in his chest, something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. Purpose, belonging, maybe even family. As they walked home, Emily grabbed Daniel's hand without asking. "Mr. Daniel," she said softly. "Are you gonna stay with us?" Daniel looked down at her, eyes softening. "As long as you need me," he said. Emily squeezed his hand. "Then, forever." Sarah's breath caught, her heart swelling with both fear and hope. Daniel smiled, brushing Emily's hair gently. "Forever sounds pretty good." They didn't know what the future held. Life didn't make promises, but for the first time in a long time, they weren't afraid, because they had something stronger than fear. They had each other, and sometimes, a protector doesn't just save a life, he becomes part of it.